The next segment of the lunch hour is Siddhartha Vishweshwara Jayanti is going to be here with us. Allow me to introduce Siddhartha to all of you. He's from New Hampshire. He's born and raised in United States. He went to school in Hanover and Princeton University for undergraduate, and now he's a PhD student at MIT. He loves Sanskrit, Samskritam, and Telugu literature, and speaks Telugu as fluently as a native, and speaks Samskrita too. He developed interest in Samskrita literature, particularly poetry, at an early age, and has composed many verses himself. So he has been fascinated by certain mind-boggling works and of the Samskrita poetry, and would like to share his observation with all of you. So Siddhartha, the floor is yours.
Namaste. Thank you very much, Ji. I'm trying to do a screen share so that you can all see the poetry as I talk about it. Are you able to see the screen yet?
Not yet. Siddhartha.
Okay. Now?
Yes, we can see it.
Dhanyawadaha. So namaste everyone, I'm Siddhartha, and I'm going to tell you about a certain padyam I wrote called Rameswara Stuti. But before I tell you about my own poetry, I'd like to say a few words about my gurus and the people who have taught me, that have brought me to the point of writing some poetry myself. So my story, I was born in Hanover, New Hampshire. And being born in the US, my mother was very concerned that I might not, me and my sister, I have an older sister, that we might not be able to enjoy the fruits of our Bharatiya heritage. And so from a young age, she made it a very strong point in her mind to make sure to introduce us to things that are cultural, linguistic, etc. And she taught me Telugu before I learned English, so I knew how to speak, read, and write Telugu before I went to school. Also in the community, there have been many people that have really taught me a lot. Natraj, an uncle in our community and a dear family friend, taught me some Veda when I was young. So thank you to Natraj, an uncle, and Kamala auntie. And I got interested in Samskritam when I was around high school. So I took Samskrita Bharati USA's program SAFL, which is a great program for any children that are in high school right now to get in touch with our Samskriti through learning the language of Samskritam. So currently I'm a PhD student at MIT, but I'm also learning Samskrita Vyakarana, Samskritam grammar. And what I'm about to tell you about, Dvyarthikavya, is something I ran into incidentally while I was doing my undergraduate studies at Princeton. So what is Dvyarthikavya? So the story that we're about to embark on starts in Vijayanagara with Sri Krishna Deva Raya, who was a king that protected our civilization in the southern part of Bharat in the 1500s. So along with being a very successful king, Krishna Deva Raya was also a patron of poetry, a patron of poets. And he had 8 poets in his court called the Ashta Diggajalu. He compared these poets with the fabled 8 great elephants that carry the worlds. And so some of these famous poets I'm sure you've all heard of, like Alasani Peddanna, the oldest of them, and Tanali Ramakrishna, who was the youngest of them. And so sometimes I've noticed that people don't know that Tanali Ramakrishna, along with having all these great and fun stories, was also a tremendous poet and considered one of the greatest Telugu poets of all time. The poet that we're going to be talking about today, or the one that was an inspiration for the work that I did, is Pingalisurana. And Pingalisurana wrote an amazing piece of poetry called Raghava Pandaviyam. So Raghava Pandaviyam, as its name suggests, is the story of Raghava, Rama, but also the Pandavas, so the Mahabharata. So in this amazing work, what Pingalasurana was able to do, if you've never heard about Dvyarthi Kavya before, I'm sure this will be astonishing to hear about. What he was able to do was he wrote one work in verse that's about 50 pages long of poetry that read from front to back simultaneously tells the story of Ramayana and Mahabharata, right? So if you read the same poetry in the same direction, the same way, depending on how you break up the words and how you understand the compound words in it, the same story tells the same work tells the story of both Ramayana and Mahabharata. And such a work that has two meanings, dvi-ardha, two meanings, is called dvyarthi. And kavya simply means poetry. And how is he able to do this amazing feat of literature? Well, he uses the beautiful structure in Samskritam and Telugu samasams, compound words. He uses the phonetic features in the language called sandhi or liaison. So I'll give you an example. When we say Parameswara, Parameswara is Parama plus Iswara. But when the A at the end of Parama and the E at the beginning of Iswara come together, they turn into an A, and we get the word Parameswara, which we're all very familiar with. And this is what's called sandhi. So he makes use of this phonetic sandhi in our languages. And along with his great knowledge of grammar, his use of compounds and liaison, samasam and sandhi, he also beautifully references stories from our Puranas and Itihasas, the stories of our heritage. And through bringing together all of these wonderful elements, he was able to compose this amazing work. And I heard about this, so I grew up knowing Telugu, but I never heard of this work, and it's an amazing thing, right? That something so great would exist in the world, and me, being a Telugu-speaking person, wouldn't even know about it. Like, this is something that I'm sure all of us Bharatiyas as part of our heritage, and all of us Hindus as part of our heritage would want to know about, and everyone should know about it. But somehow it fell out of common knowledge. And I ran into this when I was in college, but this got me thinking. If Surana was able to write a 50-page work that's a dvyarthi, maybe if I tried, maybe I could write maybe at least a small thing, not of his caliber, but still something. And with that thought, I had that thought, and for a while, nothing came about. But then finally, at some point, an idea struck me. And with that idea, I wrote a small 4-line padyam called Rameswara Stuti. So here displayed before you is the Rameswara Stuti. So first I'll read it out, or rather sing it like we do padyas. And then I'll show you how in this poem, we're able to bring out two meanings. And as the title suggests, the two meanings are one of Rama and another of Iswara. So this is a praise of both Rama and Iswara, depending on how you read it. Asurapahara satya rakshaka satya vartana jivana harshita kshirabdija svikara sridhar srikara varada sada soham. So that's the verse. And now let's understand together how we get these two meanings of Ramartha and Shivartha from this verse. So let's take the first samasa, Asurapahara Satya Rakshita. So what does this mean in the Ramayana? So we have here 4 words that are coming together. in this compound: Asura, Apahara, Sati, and Arakshaka. So Asura, Apahara. So we all know what Asura is. Asura means Rakshasa. And in the context of Ramayana, who is the most famous Rakshasa? Well, it's Ravana. So in the Ramayana, Asura refers to Ravana. Apahara means stolen or kidnapped. So who was stolen by Ravana in the Ramayana? Well, we all know the answer to this. It's Sita Devi. So Asura Apahara refers to Sita Devi. Sati means wife. And we're all familiar with the word Rakshana, protection. And from that word comes Arakshaka, protector, one who protects. So Sati Arakshaka is one who protects his wife. Right? So in this context, who is the Sati Arakshaka? Well, the Sati Arakshaka, or in Sandhi Satya Rakshaka, is Sri Rama. Because, so in total, the verse means Asura Pahara Satya Rakshaka. Rama, he who is the protector of his wife who was kidnapped by Ravanasura. Asura Pahara Satya Rakshaka. So now it's very clear to us that this compound means Rama. So then how can this compound also mean Shiva? And so here is where we use some poetic frills. So in the Saivartha, we break up the same compound, Asura Apahara Satya Rakshaka, as Asura Apahara Satya and Arakshaka. Previously, it was Sati and Arakshaka. And by the Yana Desa Sandhi, Sati plus Arakshaka becomes Satya Rakshaka. But by Savarna Dirgha Sandhi, Satya plus Arakshaka becomes Satya Rakshaka also. So in the Sivartha, who is the Asura that we're talking about? So Asura Apahara means stolen by an Asura. We just talked about this. But who is the one doing the stealing? And here the answer is Gajasura. So when we celebrate Vinayaka Chavati in the Vratakalpa Katha, we're all familiar with the story where Gajasura steals Shiva and keeps him in his stomach. And then the story goes on to say that Vishnu and Brahma and all the devatas go and they kill Gajasura and bring Shiva back. And eventually that Gajasura's head is the one that Gajanana or Vinayaka or Ganesha holds. So this is the Asura we're talking about here in the Saivartha. Because he was stolen by Gajasura, he can be called Asura Apahara. So Asura Apahara means Shiva. And we turned Sati Arakshaka now into Satya Arakshaka. What's Satya? Satya means truth, or in the spiritual context, the highest truth. The truth of Brahman. So Satya Rakshaka is one who protects that highest truth, who is a guardian of that highest truth. So Satya Rakshaka is Shiva, who is meditating in that highest state. So Asura Pahara Satya Rakshaka is O Shiva, who was stolen by the demon Gajasura, but is truly the protector and guardian of that highest state of truth, Brahman. So that's the meaning of the first line in the Rama and the Saivarthas. I'll tell you now the meaning of the last line also. And then I'll leave thinking about the other two for now as something for you to enjoy and dwell on. How do we get two meanings, a Rama meaning and an Isvara meaning for the two lines in the middle? So, Sri Kara Varada Sada Soham. Here in the difference between the Vaishnavadha and the Saivartha, we also bring in an element of the difference we see in the two traditions, of the Bhakti Bhava in Vaishnava, in the Vaishnava school, and the Jnana Bhava in the Saiva school. So Sri Kara Varada Sada Soham. Sri, auspiciousness. Kara, one who causes. Sri Kara, one who causes auspiciousness. Vara. Vara means one of highest stature. So the God. And his dasa, dasoham. What does that mean? I am the servant of even his servant. Right? This is the great Bhakti Bhava in the Vaishnava tradition. So altogether, in the Vaishnava, this means, O Deva of highest stature and the cause of auspiciousness, I am servant to even your servant. Sri Kara Varada Sada Soham. But in the Saiva tradition, it's very the central part is the jnana. The jnana that aham brahmasmi, I and Brahma are the same. So the verse that explained the Vaishnava tradition in Bhakti Bhava is now going to explain the Saiva tradition in Jnana Bhava. And how is it going to do it? We now break the compound differently, and we say Sri Kara Vara Da Sada Soham. Sri Kara Varada Sada Soham. So the one who gives. So Shiva, giver of boons that cause auspiciousness, giver of Sri Kara Varas. Vara means boon also. And Da means giver. So Sri Kara Varada is one who gives auspicious boons. And Sada Soham, I am always one with you. So that's how Dvyadhi poetry works. I was able to write down simply this 4-line Dvyadhi, and it's a stuti. So I had the tremendous freedom to choose how I would describe Shiva and Vishnu to make a Dvyadhi possible, to make two meanings possible in the same verse. But to imagine that Pingala Surana 500 years ago, he was able to construe a work where he didn't have a freedom of what to describe. The Ramayana story was already there. The Mahabharata story was already there. And it was very, very long. And somehow he was able to construe a way of telling both of those at the same time. And so I hope you found this interesting and that you're all excited about learning more about Pingala Surana's work. And the great Telugu and Sanskrit literatures, and the great Samskritam grammar by Panini that has made this all possible. Namaste. Shubham Bhuya.